يا لغتي عربية حسبي بأنك منطقي وبياني عربية قلبي.
However, eventually they will have enough qubits that they will be way more powerful than any conventional computer can ever dream of. Okay, so superposition is not theoretical. Superposition is
fact,
is something that's well agreed upon. The question is, what's not agreed upon is how you interpret the superposition state. So
the interpretation is where the difference is.
Yes, where the differences lie. Yeah. So So the question is, what was thought about consciousness is, well, hang on, if I open the box, I collapse the wave function, and therefore I'm sort of creating the reality. And therefore the argument was consciousness creates reality, because you have this conscious state collapsing the wave function, giving you the cat being dead or alive. Okay? So that is, from what my reading is, that's no longer a popular view, because what is new in physics, since that was first proposed, it's not that new anymore, it's probably a few decades old, is something called decoherence. So the cat would interact with its environment even when it's in the box, and so it would be in sort of its state, as it were, way before the person is not required. If there is wave function collapse, and as we talked about, there might not be, because some interpretations don't have wave function, but if there is wave function collapse, you don't need a conscious being to do it. Yeah. Therefore, the argument that consciousness sort of creates reality via this quantum state, I think, is not an argument that many people take seriously anymore. So that's my answer to that.
Oh yeah, it's a good explanation, and it's not really my field, but it's good to hear it.
It's not my field. It's not my field either.
Well,
but
I'm sure you got more experience.
Probably have a bit more knowledge.
You've probably read more on this than me.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Yes. But you can look this stuff up by yourself, and you should.
Because this is what many people come to Speaker's Corner who.
Yeah, I've heard people make these
pseudoscientists. They come here and they say that there is consciousness in this, and this is the experiment that we use, the double-slit experience, to prove it and so on. But because this is the way it's supposed to be.
I think the argument that I've heard is not that the double split experiment proves consciousness. It's that
matter has consciousness.
It's that consciousness is an integral, fundamental part of reality and has to be in order to get wave function collapse. That's the argument that, as I understood it, has been. There may be other people here. Of course, there's all kind of crazy people here.
Speaker's Corner.
Right, exactly. So yeah, I don't think you can use that to use quantum mechanics to make that argument. And if you did, it's very dodgy. You know. But yeah.
I mean, thanks a lot. I think we're probably boring everyone because, like I said, many people don't venture into this.
But what I would suggest you do, there's a very good podcast, and I'm trying to remember.
You mentioned a book with regards to.
There's a good book. Oh yeah, this was about near-death experiences.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And out-of-body experiences more.
What is the name of the book again?
It's called "Seeing Myself" by Susan Blackmore. The New Science of Out-of-Body Experiences. And the point was, some people have claimed out-of-body experiences are proof of a soul, but actually, what she shows in the book is that you can stimulate the brain at the temporal parietal junction and generate out-of-body experiences, and therefore it's likely that you don't need to posit some extra material thing to explain out-of-body experiences. They can be explained purely in material.
So it's a part in your brain which you can stimulate to generate this kind of experience.
Yes.
The person who is subjected to this will experience that he's watching himself from outside his body or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah?
The sense that you're in your body is something. The thing is, your brain. The way a lot of people think the brain works is that it's sort of a passive receiver of information. The information comes from the external world.
It interprets it.
The information comes from the external world, and then it sort of constructs it. Yeah. But actually, the brain is more like something creating a model of what it expects to see based off inputs and past experience and so on. And it can make And a lot of optical illusions and the way that magic tricks work is that it takes advantages of the way the brain works and can misinterpret the world. It can misinterpret.
I think a very good example
There's
for
a
that
very
is
good example. If you ever look at something called a hollow mask illusion, this is a brilliant illusion where you see a mask of someone's face, and it's hollow. It's concave. Okay. Now most faces are convex, right? So when the brain looks to see a face, it expects it to be convex. So when it sees one that's concave, it refuses to accept it, and it'll actually transform it into something concave. And you actually see these hollow masks.
Because that's what it's used to.
Yeah, and it'll transform it. And what's really cool with these illusions is that you can have something that's not moving at all, but as you move your head, it looks like it's moving. It looks like it's following it. Why? Because the brain is actually constructing its reality. There's another great illusion called the same colour illusion, or the checkerboard illusion, where what you have is different shades of grey, and it looks like one is much, much darker than the other one. But actually, they're not. They're exactly the same. And you can prove this by just getting a piece of card, just taking a picture, covering it all apart from those two squares, and you'll see those two squares are the same colour. So the point is, the brain constructs its reality. It's not just this passive receiver of information.
The example that I was going to give is to do with phantom limbs. You know,
phantom limbs is another example.
People who have lost the limbs or amputated, I mean, they will feel that even though the limb is not there, literally, but the brain is interpreting that they actually have a limb.
Yes.
And they feel pain as well sometimes.
Absolutely.
So it just shows.
And you can actually generate phantom limbs using things like virtual reality now, or there's other sort of little tricks.
Oh no, I've seen a recent trick where you have one person sitting
between a hand,
exactly, and there's another person's hand there. And this guy, oh sorry, there's one real hand, and one is your own hand, and there's like a partition in the middle, and the guy takes a hammer and he smacks the artificial hand, and this guy says, he actually says, "I'll show." He feels the pain, even not feels the pain, but he thinks that he's going to get hurt.
So the point is,
how your brain works.
Is generating your experience of the world, and it can be tricked. And the out-of-body experience is best, I think, described by sometimes the brain's notion of it being in its body can be tricked to thinking that it's actually not in its body.
You know, this brings us to what many people would question, whether what we are experiencing right now is it real?
Right.
Like this conversation we are having right now, is that real? Or is that all just what our brain is interpreting?
Yeah, I mean, there's some people that would.
I know. Many people ask this.
Well, there is a philosopher.
I don't believe that.
There's a philosopher called Nick Bostrom. There's a philosopher called Nick Bostrom that says it's most likely we are living in a computer simulation. And his argument, I don't buy into it, but I'll tell you what his argument is. It's quite a clever argument, and I'll tell you why I don't think it's right. But the argument is, well, if it's possible for a computer to simulate conscious beings, then you'll create universes with conscious beings in them, and they'll be able to create their own universes with conscious beings in them, and the number of simulated realities will be exponentially large, much larger than the number of real realities, and so you're much more likely statistically then to be living in a simulated world than you are to be living in the real world. And so, or he says, almost certainly we're living in a computer simulation. It's a very clever argument.
How would you respond to that?
The reason why I don't buy into it...
How would you falsify that?
Well, I can't say I can falsify it, but I think there's a couple of flaws in the logic. One, it just might not be possible for computers to ever do it. And if it's not possible, then there won't ever be this huge number of computer simulations. Maybe computers will never get that powerful. Maybe there's a limit to how powerful computers can get. And
maybe you unplug the computer and the computer stops stimulating things.
Right. But there's another. But even if it's the case that computers could get that powerful, and there's no, I think, a priori reason to say that they couldn't. Right? I mean, we don't know whether computers can get that powerful or not. But suppose that they can, then there's another response, which is, well, how do you know that the number of real universes is not infinite? Right? And in fact, we do have reasons to think that maybe there is an infinite number of universes, or even one universe that's infinitely big would generate an infinite number of real observers.
Well, if it's a stimulation, you can stimulate. I mean, you can create.
But the point is, the argument is relying on the fact that the number of universes that are not computer simulation, that are not a computer simulation, would be some finite number. But we don't know that to be the case. It could be an infinite number of non-simulated universes, and so his argument, I think, fails because we don't know it to be the case that the number of non-simulated universes is a finite number, right? We don't have that knowledge, and in fact there are certainly theories like eternal inflation which I think have some evidence for. I don't think the evidence is overwhelming, but there's certainly some evidence for it, that the number of universes, physical real universes, is infinite, and therefore the simulation argument fails. Because you can't claim that
wouldn't things like entropy and all affect that?
Entropy,
or even
how would entropy,
or even infinite regression?
Let's deal with entropy first.
Yeah.
Entropy does not rule out there being infinite number of universes, because entropy could just be increasing and increasing. That's fine. The other universes, well, it depends how they're born, right? But the entropy of the whole system could be growing.
Entropy doesn't just increase and increase. Does it not stop at some?
Well,
everything that, like one of the laws of thermodynamics, I don't know which one it is, like the second or third?
Second. I think
is it the second? Yeah. And it does
here.
talk about things experiencing entropy. Like, for example, it cannot be.
Well, what the second law states is that entropy is overwhelmingly more likely to increase over time. That's what the second law states.
To increase?
Yeah.
You mean it? Oh, okay. So it increases, but then it also goes down at some point, isn't it? It's not always increasing.
Well, okay. So what it says is it's overwhelmingly more likely to increase. So
when you say increase, you mean exponentially? Just
no.
Just keep increasing without coming down.
More likely to increase. Now that doesn't mean it could never come down.
Exactly.
Because overwhelming probability is irrelevant if you have an infinite amount of time. If you have an infinite amount of time, there's something called Poincare recurrence, which says that any state has to go back to its initial configuration given enough period of time. So even a universe that starts off in low entropy eventually will go back to low entropy if you give it enough time, because the overwhelming probability for it to go higher means it goes up, but of course, if you have enough time, even the tiny probability for entropy to go down has to happen, right? Now, that's kind of a separate issue to what we're talking about here. You could have a system that never, if you have a multiverse, it could be the case that there's no maximal entropy to that multiverse. So the entropy for the whole system could just go up and up and up forever. And that doesn't prohibit more universes being created. There's no contradiction there with the second law.
I think there will be, because if entropy is something that goes up and then comes down later on, I mean, every system, even though energy is neither created nor destroyed, at some point,
the first law.
Yeah, that's the first law. But when you talk about, that's, by the way, that's in a closed system, isn't it?
Yeah, and also conservation of energy is violated in general relativity anyway.
Yeah.
So okay, things get.
Because then we will have the issue of infinite regression as well in the case of a multiverse, which is infinite.
Okay, but what's the problem?
The problem is how will you explain the very first universe when it exists?
Who said there was a first universe?
So where did it come from?
Maybe it's always been there.
Always been there?
Yeah.
So for example, if I give you the example that's normally given in something, let's say you go to a library and you have to borrow a book and there are infinite number of people in front of you, will you ever get a book?
No, I won't.
So the same would apply to this infinite number of universes.
No. You can't use the same. No.
Why not? Because the universe will not exist. Just like you wouldn't get a book.
I'll explain why. Because you have to wait for someone to give you the book.
Yes.
You're part of a process in this system. Okay?
That's the end.
But the system itself is not waiting to get the book, is it?
Not the system.
Right.
The system. Right. The system is such that there is infinite.
If you start, because you have to assume that there's someone at a starting point who picks the book off the shelf, passes it to someone else.
In an infinite, you don't have a starting point.
But that's the whole point.
No,
that's why the argument doesn't work.
That's the point I'm giving you with infinite regression.
But that's what I'm saying. That's why
in an infinite regression, you don't have a starting point, which is what your claim is. You're saying why is there no infinite number of universes? I'm saying it's not possible logically from this infinite regression principle for you to have an infinite number of universes because there is no starting point.
But what? That's fine.
This first cause, which you don't have in this infinite number of universe scenario, is a reason that you cannot have the universe at all.
That's not a reason at all. Okay, let's put it this way. Okay,
explain to me with respect to the library example I gave you.
Okay. So in the library example, you are waiting for your book to get here.
Yeah.
Okay, you're moving through time.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have a finite amount of time that you can wait for, because you only have a finite lifespan, right? If you had an infinite amount of time to wait, that's not a problem.
Hold on, this is a hypothetical situation.
Yeah, I know.
Let's say you got infinite amount.
That's fine.
Let's say you have infinite number of lives.
Right.
Okay, you do not die, in this scenario.
Okay.
And you have infinite number of people in front of you.
Yeah.
The problem still persists, isn't it? That you will not get the book because the number of people in front of you are not finite, but infinite.
Okay. You only have a problem if you have a finite amount of time to wait for an infinite process.
But I'm saying you don't have a finite time.
Okay, but you're asserting
your
that.
time is also infinite. This is
You're
a hypothetical.
asserting that.
Of course, this is a hypothetical situation.
I know.
Phil, you need to understand the situation I gave you.
I do understand.
I don't think there's any way you can have infinite number of people in front of you.
Okay.
That's impossible.
It's not impossible. Okay. It's not impossible. There's nothing.
Are you saying that you can actually have a queue that is infinite? Really?
A queue?
Yes.
Well, okay.
That's the reason I told you this situation is hypothetical.
There's nothing. Okay, first off, there's two questions. Okay, first mathematical consistency. Second, physical reality.
Yes.
Okay. So first off, mathematicians have very well defined notions of infinity. There's no logical contradiction of infinity existing in mathematics.
Yeah, I don't.
Okay?
It's a concept. It's a concept.
There's perfectly well defined rules for how you use transfinite arithmetic. There's no problem there.
Yeah,
okay?
I didn't say that. It's an abstract concept.
I'm just trying to separate
that you need to understand that this is not real. It's an abstract concept.
But the assertion that it's not real is an assertion. You don't know that it's not real.
Are you saying you can actually have? Because you see, the first part, I agree with you.
Yeah.
It's a there's no contradiction in the mathematical realm. There's no contradiction. I agree.
Okay.
How would you deal with the second?
Okay,
which is a physical reality.
Okay, so you're saying that the past cannot be infinite, right? Because you couldn't get to now because you'd have to wait an infinite amount of time to get here.
Yes.
Is that the argument?
Yes. In a nutshell, yes.
Okay. So there's a couple of reasons why I think that's a fallacious argument. Okay. One I'll give you, not from me, and I'll tell you who it's from. Okay. This is from Professor Roger Penrose, who's one of the top mathematical physicists.
You like that guy, don't you?
Well, because we were talking about it earlier.
Oh, yes.
And I interviewed him, and I put this very question to him.
Yeah.
So you don't have to take my word.
No, that's fine.
Okay. So if you are asking what would be infinite in an infinite universe, okay, it would be something that it wouldn't be. So let's suppose there was some pre-Big Bang state, and a lot of models in cosmology today have pre-Big Bang states. What would go through from the past to the future, from the pre-Big Bang to the post-Big Bang? The only thing that would really sort of go through, as it were, so for example, there's a model called loop quantum gravity. They have what's called a quantum bridge separating the pre-Big Bang to the post-Big Bang, and only massless particles would go through.
Sorry, only
massless particles.
Massless particles. Like light.
Like lights.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe fabric of space on itself. Yeah. Now, massless particles, they experience almost the time at once. That's a fundamental property of relativity. They're the technical term is called conformally invariant. So to explain what conformal invariance means, so imagine something like the angles of a triangle. Yeah? The angles of a triangle are conformally invariant, i.e. they add up to 180 degrees no matter how big the triangle is. They don't care about the scale of the triangle. So we say in mathematics, it's conformally invariant. Okay, so conformal invariance is something that doesn't care about scale. Okay, so the experience of these photons, these massless particles, are conformally invariant.
I think pi is another good example. Yeah.
Sorry,
the value of pi.
The value of pi, sure, okay, yeah.
It's a similar, because it doesn't depend on the size of the circle.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So,
how are we?
So what
are we still talking about the infinite regression
process? Yes.
Okay.
Because if we're talking about something that's conformally invariant, then the scale of time is irrelevant. Yeah. So
no, but time.
Hang on. Let me finish this.
Okay, fair enough.
Right? So these experience moments of time all at once. They experience all the moments of time at once. Therefore, they don't have a problem in crossing infinity.
What do you mean they experience time all at once?
Okay, so you go through time. You know, like you have a moment of now. And tomorrow, well, it's 24 hours away. The same moment tomorrow is 24 hours away. But for a photon, it isn't.
So if I ask you,
tomorrow it's all the same.
Okay.
Therefore, if you ask the question, how can they cross the infinity? Easy. It's no problem for them.
No, it is a problem. I'll tell you where. If I asked you that the light we see from the stars, yes, that is a light, isn't it?
Yes.
That could be within the photons that you're talking about.
Yes.
That light took millions of years to travel to us.
Yeah, okay. If a star that's millions of years light years away, sure.
Millions of years?
Yeah.
And
from whose perspective, though? From whose perspective?
Well, from both perspectives.
No.
So are you saying that light?
Wrong. That's fundamentally
So why is it wrong? Let's say you were the light, yeah? You were a particle of the light, you were a photon.
Yeah.
You are traveling from point A to point B.
Yeah.
In order to traverse that that space, you need time to travel between A and B.
There's no time for a photon.
Why not?
Okay, I'll explain why not.
Yeah, go on.
Okay. Right, okay. So let's try and explain with a thought experiment that Einstein did. Okay? Imagine a clock on a train. And this clock is made of a light pulse that's going from the floor of the train to the ceiling. And there's a mirror. It's pulsing between these two mirrors. Okay? Now I can make a clock by counting how many times. I mean, what is a clock? It's something that oscillates regularly. That's what a clock is. Yeah. Okay. So this is you can make
measure of time in a way.
It's okay. So you make this clock by particles going up and down between these mirrors on a train. Okay. Now you're on the train. You count how many light pulses there are going back and forth. Okay. You count a certain number. Okay. Now, what does the person on the platform see? Yeah. They see the light pulses doing this. Yeah? What do you see? You see them doing this. Okay? So you count a different number of light pulses for the distance that the train moves off the platform. You don't agree on how much time has elapsed. You can't. You cannot agree. The reason that you cannot agree...
The times will not match, I agree with you.
Okay, hang on, let me develop the point.
Okay, fair enough.
The reason that you cannot agree is because it's experimental fact that the speed of light is the same for
everyone. Two different perspectives.
The speed of light is the same for everyone.
Yeah, it is.
So if the speed of light is the same for everyone, distance and time is not the same for everyone. Okay? Therefore, you can use simple Pythagorean geometry. You can use Pythagorean theorems to just calculate how time passes as a function of speed. Because time has to slow down as a function of speed.
Yeah, whatever it is. Look, whatever perspective...
If you go faster that train is going, the less counts you have.
No, that's fine. Look, Phil, but the point
No, hang on, let me finish the point.
You haven't? Okay, go on.
So, you could what Einstein did was generate a bunch of equations and then they based off another guy called Lorentz. Okay? And you can work out how the passage of time is a function of your speed. And as you get to the speed of light, there's no passage of time. That is a fundamental aspect of relativity. Okay?
Are you saying the speed of light does not factor time at all?
There's no passage of time for a photon. We measure time because we are not moving at the speed of light. But if you were a photon that has no mass, or any object that has no mass...
I don't think anything that has mass can move at the speed of light, can it?
No, it's the other way around. If you don't have mass, you move at the speed of light. Photons don't have mass, they move at the speed of light. That's what we mean by the speed of light.
No. Any matter that has mass cannot move at the speed of light. That's what I said, yeah.
So, sorry, I thought you said...
No. Okay. That's what I said. Okay. So the point still remains. For a light to go from point A to point B, can that be measured in time?
For who?
For us, of course.
For us, we have mass, and we measure time.
I don't think photons.
The whole point is different in relativity. Is why it's called relativity.
Yeah.
It's because you cannot agree. Different moving observers cannot agree on how much time has elapsed. Right? There's no universal time in relativity that we can agree upon. That's the whole point.
Maybe there is no there's no agreement on the amount of time, but there is time. That's the point I'm making. There is still time.
Relevant to us, the ticking of a second.
Yes. Well, for massless particles, not only for humans, anything that has mass.
A second is a second.
Well, no, because as you go fast, you can still. If you go faster, what your second is and what my second is are different. We still both have mass, okay, but we don't agree on how much time has elapsed, and we also don't agree on what's simultaneous.
I think even for the because the original point we were discussing
this is relevant to the original point.
Yeah, but the original point we're discussing is with relation to an infinite universe.
Yeah.
Where there's a multiverse or whatever it is, an infinite universe, and for that, and for light to travel, I think for both we have to. The only way we can look at this is with the element of time. Or with time factored in.
But we have to, when we have these discussions, they have to be informed by the correct science of time. We can't ignore things that we've discussed.
I'm not ignoring.
Okay.
I'm saying there is time for it to go from point A to B.
Okay, but
if you're looking from the point of view of a photon, I don't know how that works.
What's fundamental in relativity is that there is not a unique notion of now. That now is observer dependent. There isn't a unique notion of now in relativity. Okay?
How do you mean?
Okay, so if I asked you how long did an event take, if you're moving at a certain speed, you would disagree with me on how long that event took.
Yeah, so you might disagree on the time, yes, but you cannot say there was no time factored in at all.
يا لغتي عربية حسبي بأنك منطقي وبياني عربية قد